Of the three pillars that you mentioned about.
Yeah, so Satyo, if you look at HR transformation, everyone all the time talks about three pillars. So they will always feel three pillars is HRBP, HR operations, and center of excellence. Uh, Everyone has been assuming for years that fourth pillar, which is field generalist or field HR generalist or field HR will disappear. And we have been saying it for some time. That's not the case. That's a wrong view. And luckily, when I look at your response, you do have a robust field HR role. And when I looked at some of the inputs, let me kind of say to you, you are kind of focusing field HR on the right things, because I see that you are putting more and more experience and employee connect on field HR. That's how the role should be. Organizations have tried to move field HR as a lower version of HRBP. That doesn't help, because that actually takes the value of HRBP role out. If a lot of people have assumed field HR as a last leg role which will disappear once HR shared services is fully automated, that's a wrong view. A lot of people treat field HR as only an extension of IR. IR is super important, but field HR is a bigger role. And then, as if you think of culture, some of the values as being critical to companies competing in future, if you think of experience being really important for the whole organization, field HR really fits in very well there. So that's why this comment, because most companies, if you ask me, a lot of organizations get locked into the blueprint saying that my HR transformation model has these three pillars, and that creates its own unique challenges. This is the way to cut the pie. So Pak Satya, if you look at our take, think of two axis processes which can be standardized and predictability of output, things which cannot be standard at all, and the predictability of output is really custom. That's the COE role, one in yellow. Now, if you think of the problem solving middle, and that's the problem, because there is a gray zone where there is low standardization and it's very strategic in nature. That's your HRBP role. When you look at the whole blue piece there, that's the field HR role, because they also solve problems, but they solve problems for employees, for HR, for managers, for the larger ecosystem. So that's really the blue. The green one is naturally your HR operations or SSCs. So that's the simple way in which we look at these four roles. So that I hope answers your question, Patsat.
Sure. That's helped me. In my current organization, the roles of problem solving are still managed by a business partner. What do you think?
Yeah. So in fact, that's the right thing to do, but business partner should limit itself. So that's the difference, Pak Satya, because if business partner starts doing all level of problem solving, you will actually struggle with the fact that you will get complained that your HRBP is not strategic enough. Because by nature, HRBP should be a strategy role where they are understanding, deploying the talent strategy, and unpacking both the talent strategy and the actions around it. So if you ask me, HRBP role in organization should follow the business structure. Think of your own business. Think of the level at which business is no more doing unique strategy. So at the level at which the unique strategy work cuts off in a business, that's the last layer of HRBP for you. You don't need an HRBP below that. Because if you start involving HRBP in the operational stuff, that's what HR does for living. So that work will get delivered very well, but you will see complaint from business leaders that they need this strategic support. That's not happening. And maybe more of your time will get sucked into those conversations. So that's where it's always important to have more high impact and lesser number of HRBPs, and really let the larger problem solving for employees and for others be with field HR. But a word of caveat, because one is the strategy dimension. The other dimension, which is important, especially in your kind of business, many of your businesses will have union and labor and some of those issues. And that's where it's not uncommon to have HRBPs pick up some strategic stuff on IR, because it's critical to the business itself at a strategic level. And it's common, if you see that mostly in European continent and ecosystem, you will see some of those examples. But still, it's not a role which is deep in problem solving. It's strategic impact. In some businesses, issues of IR might be at a strategy level, and that's where it goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What is, for your experience, what is up to 10? What is more stronger impact to the business? 1 to 10.
Okay, so let me explain this to you. And this I did talk about. If you really look at it, Satyo, the last point. So, and it's a chicken and egg story. So if you ask me, and when I and maybe Satyo, I've been doing HR transformation for now 20 years. So till around 5-7 years, the natural cadence was you will do a strategy for HR transformation. Then you will do the detailed blueprint. You will start implementing it, and then you will actually transition HR to new way of working, and then you will say that the whole thing changes. Ideally speaking, if you have done HR transformation once, you should not be needing it ever again, because if HR really deploys governance well, which is way of working in HR, so between the four roles, for example, you have, if there is a way for them to interact with business, pick up input and insights to drive actions, sit together across the four roles of HR and say what this data means, what this demand means, how we can solve this problem, collaborate with a project mindset, solve and report back with data. You will not need HR transformation ever again, because you are constantly improving. Now the question is, does this change happen at the end of technology, at the end of your world-class HR analytics working, or should it happen earlier? Now, if you ask me, now I am firm believer it should happen as soon as possible. Because when this happens, even if you don't have your data ready, what it does, it creates the right demand for the data. Without that, what will happen is you will create the most fancy definition of analytics, which will never get used. And hence, it's important to change way of working in HR as soon as possible. It does couple of things. It starts giving value to business immediately, because while HR transformation is important, business will always come back and tell you that I need these outcome for business. Some businesses, which is fast growing, will need large new capacity, so they want to recruit faster. Some of them may be changing into newer areas, some critical role hires. Some of them will say, I need some of these retention to happen. Some of them will say, I need a lot of visibility of my talent across the ecosystem because I need to move them around and so on. Now, if you look at it, if these are pressing needs of a business, business is not going to wait for the end of HR transformation for this to happen. So how do you prioritize what is pressing and continue to deliver it and use that to build goodwill for HR to do more? I think that's a big change. And even in our data park, Satya, organizations who are doing this well are really the organizations who are making a difference on everything else. Now, if you ask me, in my real life experience in last year and a half, 3-4 largest organizations in Asia where we are driving HR transformation, we have requested and made this change early on. And it's very interesting. Same HR function. And now HR function looks very agile. Because it's not that they are doing anything differently. They are just following this discipline of this monthly cadence with business within HR and going back. And there is a fundamental shift here. A lot of Asian organizations actually do governance, but with putting COEs at the center. Actually, what this means is you need to do governance putting HRBPs at the center. First, HRBPs need to find and understand problem from the business, come and then with the HR ecosystem solve that. And many times when they are finding the problem with the business, CHRO may step in because it's complex and there is a broader understanding needed. Some of the CEO leaders will step in, but really HR BPs become your arrowheads in driving this change. So that's really a big change.
Understand. So yeah, it is true. When we are doing transformation here in Indonesia, the challenge is actually it's not the technology. Technology is very easy to get. Many tech company applied, right? But the challenge one is the readiness of the our internal people and the change management, how to adapt from human, what you call like a human employee journey to become human experience, to adapt with the tech it is. Because if not, then the tech will useless and nobody want to use. And at the end of the day, the HRBP cannot give all the best for the business because they're struggling to explain to the business, right?
Yes.
Even
So and Park Satya, it's a great point you are making because if you think of this slide, I've gone back to that slide. Now look at a difference. If I do this within HR and I say that we need to change performance, and the way to change performance is we need ongoing model of ongoing conversations. Great. You will design a new performance, you will deploy. But when you solve it with an outside in lens, to your point, and for example, you are doing it with manager, HR and HRBP picks it up with the business. HR then has a more HR needs that in some way also a stick to go back to business and say, while there is a small bit around solutioning, which is the new way of performance, designing that form, to your point, easiest thing to do. Defining a platform which allows you to capture this ongoing feedback. But the biggest change is how do you switch manager from owning performance and giving rewards to a manager being a mentor and looking at performance as a developmental thing to enable actually outcomes for business, to have more and more of their people performing at a higher level. That change and driving that change management, HR will first need to push business leaders and then really enable it in the larger organization. And that's the biggest challenge. So, and that's where, in our experience, Park Satyo, an HRBP led cycle allows that for happen to happen more easily because you are asking and working with business leaders to problem solve. When they put in the fact that, oh, we need to change, our managers need to change as the top two thing and not really the top thing as new system of performance, then that change is more likely to happen than if their top thing is we need a new and more a simple system of performance. Because if you are not doing one mid-year intervention, how do you assume that my managers will be doing 10, 12 ongoing conversations through the year? It's never going to happen. So what you are saying is very true. Yeah, Yasmin.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shashwat. It was indeed a very well, you covered these extensive findings in a very concise and crisp way. My key takeaway has been about how HR transformation is not for HR only. It is about enabling business transformation, and how, since ways of working for HR are changing so rapidly, adaptability becomes all the more critical, all the more imperative. So thank you so much, Shashwat, for taking through that. I'm sure there's a lot to learn from takeaway from the study, and our viewers would agree to that.